some breaking news on Valentine's Day that I think Raider Nation is going to love. The Las Vegas Raiders are hiring Rob Leonard to be their defensive coordinator. Anytime breaking news happens, I'm always going to do my best to keep you guys up to date. Make sure you click that subscribe button. But I mean this when I say this. Rob, congratulations, man. I have covered a lot of different coaches, obviously being the host of the Raiders Report. You have been a part of a lot of different coaching regimes, being with this organization since 2023. But I will speak on behalf of Raider Nation. I am so happy and so proud of this organization for giving the chance to you, because I do think that you're a coach that deserves it. You might not have the resume yet that screams, hey, I can be a defensive coordinator in the National Football League, but from somebody that has watched this organization for as long as I have, for somebody that has studied this team, studied the players, studied everything around the silver and black, I am very, very happy for the Raiders. I am very happy for Raider Nation, and I am super happy and proud for the Rob Leonard family for getting this great opportunity. Now, I usually go live for this type of news, but today's Valentine's Day. My wife's going to come first. Happy wife, happy life. So I'm making this video for y'all today. Maybe a little bit later in the week we can celebrate when I get back into the studio. But let's face the facts here. If anybody is upset about this hiring, I personally don't think that you've paid a lot of attention to the Las Vegas Raiders over the past few years. And some people are going to look at numbers about, defense. I've had a few people that watch the program say, well, Mitch, the Raiders' defensive numbers haven't been very good. I don't totally disagree with that, but if you think Rob Leonard is a Patrick Graham guy, or Rob Leonard is a Pete Carroll guy, or Rob Leonard is any of the other coaches, Antonio Pierce, that we've had a part of this organization, I completely disagree with you. To me, if anything, Rob Leonard's defenses remind me a lot of like what the Harbaugh, what Mike Macdonald defenses look like. And, he's got experience with Mike Macdonald, somebody who Klint Kubiak was just with and just won a Super Bowl in Baltimore, because in 2022, Rob Leonard coached under a year for Mike Macdonald. And that's when Macdonald was the DC in Baltimore. And you know for a fact that the Raiders, they like that type of mentality in a defensive coordinator. They were very interested in getting Jesse Minter. Minter comes from the Baltimore, Harbaugh tree. And I think for a guy like Kubiak, you got to sit back and look at this past year and you got to go, the best version of me was working with somebody like Mike Macdonald. And one of my favorite things that Klint Kubiak said at his press conference was he loved that Mike challenged him. And, he asked him tough defensive questions, because his job as the OC was to also understand what you're doing on the other side of the football. So I think when you come from that background, for Klint, it's probably a lot easier of a decision for him to make, knowing that, all right, I'm going to be the head coach of the Raiders, and I'm going to be able to work with somebody on the defensive side of the football that comes from the Mike Macdonald tree, sees football very similar to the way that I do. And there's risk in any hire, right? You can hire somebody that's got every single pedigree that is up there. But sometimes you just got to trust your gut. And sometimes you just got to go with a really good coach. Now, the Raiders, they interviewed 4 different candidates. They interviewed DeMarcus Covington. They interviewed Jeff Howard. They interviewed Aubrey Pleasant. But they have decided to go with Rob Leonard. And I'll say this. Out of all the other candidates, I would have liked Pleasant. And I said that on my show. But I am extremely happy and I'm extremely excited for the hire of Leonard. And I'm going to ask you all a question. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show. If you had to grade it, A, B, C, D, or F, let me know down below the grade that you give to the Raiders for hiring Rob Leonard to be their defensive coordinator. My answer is going to be coming up here after this YouTube ad break. The grade I'm going to give is a B grade. I think it is a good move for the silver and black. I won't ever sit here and tell y'all something that I don't actually feel. I'm not going to say it's an A-plus grade, because in my mind, an A-plus hire is Klint Kubiak. Klint Kubiak is a very, very deserving head coach. I'm not saying that Rob Leonard is not a deserving defensive coordinator, but from a resume standpoint, from a developmental standpoint, I just want to see it a little bit more before I can give it an A grade. But I'll tell you this right now. If we're sitting here 365 days from today, and if somebody looks at me and goes, Mitch, what does it take to be playing today, next year? For those of you that do not know, next year, February 14th, 2027 is when the Super Bowl will be played. We got a lot of confidence in Klint Kubiak. We got a lot of confidence in Fernando Mendoza, Ashton Genty, and Brock Bowers. But that defense, there's a lot of unknowns. And I think that that's one of the biggest reasons why you bring in and you keep a guy like Rob Leonard. So if you're an organization that wants to be playing on Valentine's Day next year, which again, crazy idea, but I still think that we're moving in the right direction. My point is this. I know what I expect out of Klint Kubiak. Hey, we're in Vegas, baby. Sometimes you got to be willing to gamble a little bit. And this is a good gamble. There are dumb gambles. And then there are good gambles. I'll just leave it like that. Rob Leonard to me is a good gamble. So coming up here next on the show, I'm going to tell you why I ultimately think that the Raiders decided to go in the direction of hiring Rob Leonard to be a defensive coordinator for the Las Vegas Raiders. The very first reason, Leonard is a good coach. And I know I'm going to keep saying that over and over again, but anybody that has watched my program since 2023, anybody that has been a real one that understands this show knows how much of a fan I am of Rob Leonard. Before Pete Carroll ended up leaving, when Antonio Pierce got left, I always said the number one coach that the Raiders got to retain is Rob Leonard just because of what I've heard about him, right? Like I've talked to agents, I've talked to players, I've just talked to so many people and glowing reviews about Leonard. And it's just the way that it's been. Also on top of that, whether you got the East-West Shrine game, whether you got the Senior Bowl, what the NFL always tries to do in those games is they try to get the up-and-coming coaches to just and when I say the up-and-coming, truly the best up-and-coming coaches around the National Football League, and they try to put them in those games. And I can remember, and I don't remember if it was the East-West Shrine or the Senior Bowl, but I remember Rob Leonard was a linebackers coach in that. And, here at Chat Sports, we get the opportunity to go to those things. We get the opportunity to talk to people. I can't wait to go to the NFL Combine. I'm going to be there for an entire week. Maybe I'll get to meet my guy Mendoza again. But at the end of the day, they put those coaches in situations. So, I know that there's going to be some Raiders fans that are our defense hasn't been all that good. You could also say our Raiders defense has not been all that good because of the amount of turnover. And it's really difficult for a defensive coordinator to try to implement a defense when most of the years, the money's been spent on the offensive side of the football. Josh McDaniels spent a lot of money on the offensive side of the football. This past season, a lot of money spent on the offensive side of the football. And when you talk about a team that's had McDaniels guys, AP guys, Pete Carroll guys, and now you're going to add another new mix of players, it's been a melting pot that, let's just face the facts, hasn't melted the way that we have all hoped that it's melted. That's reason number one why I think Rob Leonard has been hired, because he is a good coach, and he deserves this job. And there's been a lot of people that have gotten jobs through the course of my time of covering this team, and I don't want to say that I wish I could go live today, because you guys know how much I love being able to hoot and holler, and I know that there's probably some of y'all that might be a little bit bummed that I'm not going live today. But I also know there's a lot of people out there that have got significant others, that got wives, and my wife is the biggest fan and bigger supporter of me. But today's her day, and there's nothing in the world that can make me give that up. So I hope that you guys all understand, and I know for a fact you're watching this show today on Valentine's Day, and I know for a fact that y'all have my back. Let's go to the next reason here why I believe Rob Leonard ended up getting hired. He worked underneath Mike Macdonald in 2022. One of the keys to get a team back on schedule, whether it's a team, and I think anybody that's ever been a part of a group that has succeeded, right? It doesn't always just have to be sports. It doesn't always have to be X's and O's. Maybe you had a class project. Maybe you were at work with a work event. We have so many amazing people. Shout out to LA Crash Dog that always tell you, show up and show out for Save a Warrior. And if you don't already know, go to saveawarrior.org. Go to donate and tell them Father Tom sent you. Maybe you've been in the military. The best teams that I personally have ever been on have always known how to properly communicate. My marriage, right? Every guy. You got to know how to properly communicate in order to get to that ultimate goal. But to me, I look at Klint Kubiak in this situation and I go, I wonder if he felt like he could communicate best with Mike Macdonald. And they just ended up winning a Super Bowl together. And when you find somebody that you feel like you work with really well, and Mike Macdonald's not a man of many words. He's a man of action. He's a man of, hey, man, I'm here to get the job done. I'm going to come in here every single day. I'm going to grind. I'm going to do whatever it takes to achieve the ultimate goal. And for Kubiak, you got a little bit of taste of success. But Kubiak also knows from his dad on all of those different regimes, Kubiak's been on a ton of different teams over the past 10 years. And, you probably learn what you like. You probably learn what you don't like. And then when you find that person, when you find that guy that you're like, hey, man, that's who I want to work with all the time, and Mike Macdonald, can you find a little bit of a version of that? And I think Rob Leonard is a little bit of a version like a Mike Macdonald, somebody that's about getting the business done, somebody who is a great connector with players, somebody who knows the X's and O's, who gets the most out of their players. And, there's been a lot of different defensive lines, and don't get me wrong, there's been players that haven't lived up to the bill, right? Tyree Wilson hasn't lived up to the bill, no doubt about it. Byron Young was a bust that we couldn't really get it going with. There's been plenty of names. I don't need to bring up the negatives around the Raiders. But I also look at guys like a Caleb Chase, and that was lost. And Rob Leonard, I thought, did a great job of unlocking that guy to get the most out of him. And now he's a very well-respected defensive end that I know for a fact respects Rob Leonard a lot. And I would honestly love to bring him back here to the silver and black. There's a lot of, like Malcolm Kuntz, that 1 year in 2023, the final back half. We gave a lot of credit to Patrick Graham. We gave a lot of credit to Antonio Pierce, but I feel like honestly more credit should have gone to Rob Leonard. I'll tell you this right now, and I don't even think I'm the only one that feels this way. The person that probably should have got promoted to be the head coach, interim head coach, back when things went sour back in 2023, I think it should have been Rob Leonard. I think he would have been way more deserving, but Leonard's a little bit more quiet, where AP is kind of that louder voice in the room, and I think the Raiders at that time were looking for a loud voice instead of maybe the right voice. I promise y'all this. I can't sit here and tell y'all that Rob Leonard's going to be a great defensive coordinator. I don't know. But this is a good gamble for the Raiders. And I know that he's going to connect with players. I know the guys that are on that team are going to love to go out there and rally for him, but there were rumors earlier this offseason that Tom Brady liked Brian Flores, right? Like, you guys all remember the Brian Flores rumors. If you can't tell me that everybody was talking about him. And I know that there was some interest in Brian Flores. But I also know that there were certain coaches, players, people inside of that organization that didn't want to work with Flores because he burned some past bridges. The other thing, though, that anybody that's watched the show that kind of drove me nuts at times with Patrick Graham's defenses were I'm going to sit back, bend but don't break, right? We said it all the time. And that can work when you have talent and you have depth. But when you're going 3 and outs and you just don't have the depth, you get tired and you start getting exploited in the third quarter and the fourth quarter, which has happened to a lot of Raiders defenses. It's the same song and dance every single year. We all know exactly what I'm talking about. But when you come from the Mike Macdonald tree, when you come from Brian Flores, and Leonard, he coached underneath Brian Flores from 2019 to 2021. And I don't think Flores might be the best man for a head coaching job, but he's one of the best defensive coordinators in the National Football League, and you can't tell me otherwise. And what Brian Flores does is he makes you uncomfortable, and he's going to try to bend and break you because he believes that if you can get after the quarterback, if you can bring pressure, that you're going to have a lot of success in the National Football League. Now, you got to make sure your back end is really secure. You need to be able to make sure that you can generate pressure. But I'm telling you this right now, I think because Rob Leonard is very similar to a Mike Macdonald, maybe has a similar scheme set as a Brian Flores, which resonates with Tom Brady, I think that could be a big reason. The next reason why you got to wonder if they did it, and again, I'm not saying this is why they hired him, but you want to keep Maxx Crosby happy. And nobody's above the shield, and I feel like we've been talking about Max a lot. But Klint Kubiak sat there on that podium, and he said that he wants Maxx Crosby to be a part of this organization. And I want to give credit to Chugs because Chugs said something the other day on the show, and I was like, I completely agree with it. And you think about that press conference. Klint Kubiak looked at every single one of us and said, I want Maxx Crosby to be a part of this organization. Now, some of you might go, oh, well, Mitch, what are you supposed to say? I hear you. He also looked at us and said that he wants to evaluate Fernando Mendoza. And that he doesn't know if that's the pick, which I could sit here and I could be like, well, if I got pocket aces right now, I don't need to tell you that I got pocket aces because I'm going to be able to play the hand however I want. But to me, for him to be a little bit like, oh, I don't know if I want to draft Fernando Mendoza yet, and so clear cut of, I want Maxx Crosby on this team, I just think just speaks volumes of the importance of what this organization is trying to do. And, for one of the things that has frustrated Max, yes, he wants to win. No doubt about it. He wants to be on a team that wins. He doesn't want to be a part of a rebuild. Was he upset about how things ended at the end of the season? From what I understand, yes. Are there some people inside of that organization right now that maybe he doesn't see eye to eye with? Yes. I've talked about who those people are on some previous shows if you want to go check them out. But I also know that one of the things that has driven Max crazy is just the turnover, the change, because it doesn't only make that difficult for players from like a winning standpoint, it also makes it really difficult on a player who's trying to be the best ever. And when you're chasing that 1%, you got to wonder sometimes, like, with all that turnover, does that make you 1% worse? Like, I know, like, I would wonder it. And I bet you for a guy like Max, for all the turnover with 6 different head coaches since 2021, I mean, that's an insane amount of turnover since Max was drafted in 2019 out of the 4th round. So now what you do is you say, okay, Max, we're going to go out and we're going to get the best young, innovative offensive mind that we can get in Klint Kubiak, and he's really going to be perfect for what we have and what we need, right? Like Mendoza, Genty, Bowers. I don't need to sit up here and convince Raider Nation that it's great. Like, shit today, man, I just got a fresh cut. My barber, shout out to Alex, give him a shout out on IG, Stun of Fades. As soon as I walk in, daps me up, he gives me a hug, he goes, bro, we got Kubiak, and that's how the nation feels. I bet you right now the Raiders are trying to prove to Maxx Crosby that, hey, man, like, I don't know if we can guarantee we're going to be able to win right away. But it's also really hard to win a Super Bowl, and I'd make the argument it'll be just as challenging for Maxx Crosby to go win a Super Bowl somewhere else. You could pick all 31 teams. It's going to be just as challenging for you to go win a Super Bowl than the Raiders to make the playoffs. And some people might laugh at that statement, but winning a Super Bowl is extremely difficult. It is. Going to the playoffs for the Raiders, extremely difficult. But if you can lay out that plan, if you can show your guy, hey, man, this is the plan. And by the way, we're going to keep, I would say, Max's favorite coach. I know Max and Rob are extremely close. Again, he's the defensive line coach, run game coordinator. Max is the best defensive end in the National Football League against the run. I don't care what anybody says. And then also he's the defensive line coach. So they are extremely close. They work together all the flipping time. But what it also shows is continuity. And it also shows that you're staying somewhat relevant. And I do think that that could help out a player like Maxx Crosby. Now, I got 2 more reasons why I believe the Las Vegas Raiders decided to go out and hire Rob Leonard to be their defensive coordinator. Before I get into that, though, huge shout out to today's sponsor, Panda Subs. If you don't already know, it's owned and operated by a diehard Raider fan, and they're hooking up the nation with 26% off everything in the store. Pandasubs.com. Make sure that you use code Kubiak. That's Kubiak, because we're freaking Kubiak. 26% off at Pandasubs.com. I always get asked what products I personally like. I'll always recommend the protein. The protein to me is the safest thing that you can possibly get. It is a little bit on the sweeter side, I will say that, but I have an extreme sweet tooth. And I have not met anybody that doesn't love the protein that Panda Subs provides. And anytime that they drop a new one, I always want to go try it. Because for me, I get late night cravings. And I always want something sweet, right? Especially on a day like today, like on Valentine's Day. Alex and I were down there earlier like, should we bake cookies? Like, do we get donuts? What exactly do we do? You know what? Like, maybe I'll just be a little bit healthier here and I'll cook up something with a little bit of Panda Subs protein. It's really that good. I don't think people realize that it's healthy for you. Like if I were to just give you a Panda Subs protein smoothie, I think it would blow your mind on how actually good it is. It's also got like little chunks in it depending on what you want. If you don't have as much of a sweet tooth, get your hands on like the pineapple whip one's got freeze-dried pineapples in it. The strawberry one's got freeze-dried strawberries in it. Trying to think of something like the vanilla one is not as sweet as some of the other ones that I've had. But if you like the sweet tooth one, I'm telling you this right now, go for the moon. You can almost go for anything. I actually am supposed to talk about other things here in my Panda Subs read, but sometimes I just want to be very honest with y'all, and I love all the protein that Panda Subs provides. Shout out to them for always sponsoring the Raiders Report. Shout out to them for being here for the past 5-6 years, man. It's been a hell of a run. You've been here longer than Rob Leonard, so shout out to Panda Subs. Let's go to the next reason here why I believe Rob Leonard has been promoted to be the Raiders defensive coordinator. Kubiak, young, innovative, offensive-minded head coach. Rob Leonard, young, innovative, defensive-minded head coach. What's funny is I did a video, and I'll probably put it on my social media, at Mitchell Renz 365. I did a video about a month ago, and I broke down every single head coach candidate that the Raiders had. And I tried to pair each head coach with an OC and a DC. What's crazy about that video is it really might become true. Now, I actually don't even remember who I put at OC, but I think it was Jake Peets or Andrew Janocko, and I would say most Raider fans right now probably think that they're the two frontrunners for this OC job. But I remember I put Rob Leonard as DC to pair with Klint Kubiak, and I didn't have a big rhyme or reason. But one of the things that I remember talking about in that video was I just think Klint Kubiak is a really smart coach. And I think sometimes smart coaches don't have to explain their reasoning. You don't have to show the math on how you got the answer. The answer's just right. And Klint, to me, has that mindset, and the way that they go about their business, and the way that, again, like I have not heard many Raiders players talk about Klint, only just the stuff that I've seen. But our team at Super Bowl Media Row got a lot of really great clips. And if you guys haven't seen them, there's Gray Zabel, there's Jackson Smith and Jigba, AJ Barner, and they're talking about Klint Kubiak. And they're just talking about him as the man and the coach that he is. And I listen to those clips, and you're like, yeah, you can just tell, man, like Klint's a stand-up dude that people I can understand want to rally for him. And he's got a little bit of that Brock Bowers where, you know that he's not overly animated, but you know Brock Bowers is about football, and you know he's a hell of a football player. When I've heard players talk about Rob Leonard over the past few years when I've had opportunities, it's been very much like that, where you don't only respect the coach because he's a smart coach, you respect the man because he's a good man. And we got to be able to face the facts, man. In the NFL, everybody's talented. You're always trying to get that next level. And for a Raiders team, oftentimes I think we've chased the whale. We've chased the resume instead of hiring the right guy for the Las Vegas Raiders. We chased John Gruden. We tried to overpay him, right? I feel like sometimes what Mark has tried to do is he knows that he hasn't been the best owner. Though you talk to any alumni out there and anybody will say nothing but glowing remarks about Mark Davis. I've never shaken Mark's hand. I can't wait to do it in May. But everybody that I know that knows Mark says nothing but nice things about him, and every single Raiders alum says the exact same thing. But I do at times feel like Mark, when he hires a coach, overcompensates. And he overcompensates with his checkbook. And I'll tell you this, if my checkbook was as big as Mark's, shit, man, I'd probably do the exact same thing. And, he hired Gruden for 10 years, $100 million, fully guaranteed. Ended up bringing in Josh McDaniels, which I did not like that because I didn't think he was a good leader of men. And I didn't think McDaniels was the right guy for our Raiders team at the time. So then you bring in McDaniels, you give him a big paycheck, and he wasn't the right leader. You bring in Antonio Pierce because I think you try to right your wrongs by not bringing in Rich Bisaccia. Then you go out and you get, Pete Carroll, who's got probably the best resume that you could possibly look at. What I think Mark Davis is learning this year, and why I'm very proud of Mark, I'm very proud of John, I'm very proud of Tom, and I'm very proud of Kubiak already early on. They're going out and hiring the guy that they think is best for the job. And sometimes when you've been so wrong, why not just try to switch it up a little bit, right? Like, you're hiring Rob Leonard and Klint Kubiak, two young coaches in this league. But you look around the NFL right now, there's a lot of teams that are doing the exact same thing. Look at Seattle. They just won a Super Bowl. 8-dirty. Klint Kubiak is OC. Mike McDonald. Young, innovative coaches that aren't afraid to do something different, that aren't afraid to pull from what they've learned from a Kubiak system, from a McDonald system, and kind of put their own little twist on it a little bit. And that's what I love, and that's why I'm excited to see Rob. But I think it also proves to me that the Raiders are learning, and Mark isn't doing things that he used to do. I know it's still early. I know it's February. I know I'm probably just that blind, loyal Raiders fan that we all are every offseason. But 2026 feels different, and I think the Rob Leonard hire is, again, of proof that Mark is learning from his past, and the Raiders organization is learning from their past. And if you're confident in something, if you believe in something, go out and get a guy that you believe in. And I am excited to see Klint Kubiak make his legacy with the Raiders. I'm excited for Rob Leonard to start his journey and his legacy with the Raiders, instead of going out and chasing guys that have already made their legacy elsewhere. I want guys that are hungry. I want a gritty football team. I want a team that wants to play some old school Raiders FU style of football in 2026. And I think Rob Leonard is going to help us do that. The final reason why I believe that the Raiders decided to go with Leonard We got to be able to build the trenches. Like the video if you made it this far on Valentine's Day. My wife's probably already like, all right, this is way, way too long of a vid. But we got to be able to win in the trenches. And, Kubiak has said it. We've been saying it. We've been screaming from the rooftop, I think, as Raider fans, that we need to win in the trenches. And I mentioned this when the Raiders interviewed Leonard, and I said, no matter what, it's a smart interview. Because, raise your hand again if you've been a Raiders fan over the past few years, and you're like, man, I feel like I know this team better than the guys making decisions. And for me, I like the Leonard interview because for the Raiders, it's so important. When you have all the holes that we do on the defensive side of the football, and we do, we have holes at safety. We need a free safety. We have holes at corner. We need to be able to bring back a corner or two. Maybe 3, right? We need to probably go out and get 2 to 3 linebackers. We need to be able to build that defensive line. I mean, we have so many pieces that are hitting free agency. Malcolm Kuntz hitting free agency. Thomas Booker's hitting free agency. Eric Stokes is hitting free agency. Devin White, Landon Roberts, Jamal Adams. We got a lot of different pieces, right? There's plenty more that are hitting free agency. The way that you can quickly fix your defense when you have a lot of holes is when you win in the trenches, when you win at the defensive line. And when you win on the defensive line with 4, maybe 5, it's going to make those back 7, back 8 look so much more talented. And that's what I'm hoping that the Raiders do. But one of the things that has really frustrated me as a fan is, again, I feel like I've known this team better than some of the decision makers. So if you're the Raiders, you bring in the number one guy that confidently, I think, knows the Raiders defense better than anybody inside that building. So if I'm Kubiak, I'm trying to learn from the smartest guy in the room. I'm trying to learn from Rob Leonard, and I'm also trying to learn from the guy who knows the trenches. Because I think that shows me, like this Rob Leonard hire shows me that they're going to really, truly invest in the trenches. And it fires me the F up. Again, I can say I like Rob Leonard hire. Right now it's a B grade. Bro, I'm telling you this right now. If they find a way to keep Max, if they decide to go out and get some really key free agents, you go out and get a few key players in the draft, I mean, I'm going to like that hire a whole lot more. But this hire makes sense for the Raiders. And it makes sense for the silver and black. And I just want to make that very clear because it might not have been the hire that everybody wanted. I know there was a lot of names out there I wanted Jim Schwartz. Would have loved Sean McDermott. I would have loved a older, experienced coach with Klint Kubiak. However, though, if you were trying to check all your boxes, and I do think one of those boxes is keeping Max Crosby happy. If you're trying to check every single box of a respected coach, check. Ties to guys that we believe in, Brian Flores to Mike McDonald, check. Maxx Crosby connection, check. Young, innovative coach that's going to get along with all the players, check. And a guy that knows how to build the trenches and somebody that knows this team extremely well on the defensive side of the football. This hire allows Klint to focus on the X's and O's and for Klint to focus on the offense, which is why he was hired. I know he's the head coach. He's in charge of everything. But you hired him to get the most out of Mendoza, Genty, Bowers, that Raiders offense, and be the play caller that he was in Seattle. That's why you hired him. You bring in a guy like Leonard, and he knows the defense. It's going to allow your coach to focus there because you got a guy that can focus on your defense, that knows that team, and can help you make decisions of, all right, man, we're going to have over $100 million in salary cap space. We're going to have 10 picks. Obviously, pick number 1 is going to be on Mendoza. How do we use those other 9 picks? You're going to have somebody that can sit down there and create a good plan with you and come up with a plan that makes the most sense. Again, I know we wanted an older defensive coach to help out Kubiak, but I do think if you were going to hire a young guy, the number one guy that does probably make the most sense for the Raiders is Rob Leonard. And again, I wish I could go live for y'all, but at the same time, I can't wait to hang out with my wife all day today. We got plans. We've been doing stuff all flipping day today. Chuck's been hanging out with us, though. It's been super rainy here. But again, y'all, Rob Leonard, congratulations to you. Can't wait to see what you're going to be able to bring to the table here. I know a lot of the Raiders players are going to be fired up. I know I was talking about you to some of our past Raiders guys. I was just talking to Jonathan Hankins. Shout out to Big Time Hank. Go check out his YouTube channel about you the other day, and he had nothing but glowing remarks about you. And really, really excited for Raider Nation. Really excited for the 2026 season. And I apologize for not going live today, but again, y'all know how much I rock with y'all. I just rock with my wife a little bit harder, giggity. All right, y'all, I'm getting ready to hop on out of here. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure those notifications are turned on. She hopefully doesn't hear that joke. And enjoy the rest of your weekend. Obviously, if any other stuff happens this weekend, I will do my best to keep you guys up to date. I kind of wish that this news would have dropped tomorrow or yesterday. That way I could have gone live. But at the end of the day, I will always do my best in my power to keep you guys up to date around the silver and black. If you want even more videos around the Las Vegas Raiders, make sure you click this subscribe button right here. And then if you're looking for even more videos, you can click on this bad boy, or you can click on this bad boy right here. At the end of the day, if you want Raiders content, I'm the #1 guy that's going to be able to provide it for you. If you don't believe me, subscribe. And if you don't like what I got after a week, you unsubscribe. You got nothing to lose.